Let's talk about how to stick to your goals. Specifically, if you keep failing at them or quitting, what you can try instead. We'll start with a parable that I think is going to make this idea click. Then we'll get into why the big change, the full overhaul, keeps falling apart, what it's actually costing you every time it does, and what to do instead. I'm also going to tell you about a diet I tried, which maybe scam isn't the right word, but it turned out to be completely made up. And it ties in so well with my point. If you've been starting over more times than you can count, this one's for you. Welcome to The Steady Becoming. We already know most of what we need to grow. We know that focus matters, small things done repeatedly add up, and we get better as we go. We know it, we just forget it when it counts. This show is the reminder that what works is often simple and often steady. I'm your host, Miriam. This is episode number 4, and it's a reminder to take one small step at a time. If you're someone who keeps starting over, who's tried to change something more than once and watched it fall apart, I want to say something before we get into the story. I don't think it's what you think it is. I don't think it's a you problem. I think the step was probably just too big. And by the end of this episode, I think you're going to see exactly what I mean. Okay, the story. There was a master mason who lived on the side of a steep, jagged mountain. One morning, she called 2 apprentices to her side. Together, they would carve a staircase from the base of the mountain to the summit so that the village below might finally reach the temple at the top. The first apprentice looked at the peak and felt a surge of ambition. To be worthy, she decided, she had to go all in. In the first month, she gathered every tool at once: the sledge, the chisel, the leveling string, and threw herself at the mountain with everything she had. She tried to clear, break, and smooth the path in a single effort. By the end of the week, she collapsed in exhaustion, the mountain unchanged. In the second month, she began again, vowing to be more serious this time. She worked through the night with frantic energy. But by the third day, the sheer scale of what remained felt like a weight she couldn't lift, and she stopped again. In the third month, she made one final attempt. But before she had raised the hammer, something heavier than the hammer stopped her. It was the memory of the rubble, the 2 false starts, the 2 collapsed weeks. She set the hammer down quietly. She was simply someone who started things and doesn't finish them. She had known it for a long time, she told herself. Now she was certain. She walked down the mountain and did not return. The second apprentice looked at the same peak. Then she looked down at her feet. On the first day, she did not try to reach the summit. She cleared the weeds from a single square of earth and went home. On the second day, she chose one stone and spent the afternoon fitting it into the ground. On the third day, she made sure that stone could not be moved. The village watched. Some whispered that it wasn't enough, that if she truly cared about the temple, she would work faster, that what she was doing barely counted as building at all. And some days, she heard them, felt the pull to pick up every tool at once, to finally look worthy of the task. On those days, she stood still for a moment and looked down at her feet and found the next stone. Just the next stone. That was all. Season after season passed. The voices grew quieter. The stones accumulated. And then, one morning, the master stood at the summit and looked down at a staircase, perfectly level, unbreakable, stretching all the way to the village below. The second apprentice stood at the bottom, hammer in hand, ready for the day's work. There's this kind of tired that doesn't get talked about enough. It's not from doing too much, but it's from starting over too many times. And it is so exhausting. Like, you decided to change something. You made a real plan, not like a I should probably kind of plan, but like an actual plan. And then somewhere between making the plan and doing it, like really following through with it, it just fell apart. And you're standing there in the middle of another thing that didn't work, wondering what is actually wrong with you. So maybe it was food. Like you were going to clean up the way you eat, finally, for real this time. So you cleared out the pantry, deleted Uber Eats, downloaded a tracking app, because I feel like there's always a tracking app, right? And then you planned out the whole week. You committed to cooking every night. And you did it. For like 4 or 5 days, you actually did it. And then a hard week happened. A meeting that threw you off, or a kid who got sick. A week where by Thursday, you were already running on empty. And you ate like the thing. Like you went to McDonald's and the whole plan felt broken. And that was it. That was the end of that. Or maybe it was meditation. You'd heard enough about what it does for stress and sleep that you actually decided, okay, I'm actually doing this. You downloaded the app, ordered the cushion, because of course you ordered the cushion. You decided you'd do 20 minutes every morning before everyone else was up. And it worked for like 3 days. And then you slept through the alarm, skipped it, told yourself you'd do it tonight, and didn't. And by the end of the week, the cushion was in the corner and the app had notifications you were ignoring. And you added this to the list of things you apparently just can't stick with. And I want to talk about what's actually going on there. Because honestly, it's not you. So somewhere along the way, most of us got taught, not explicitly, nobody sat us down and said this, but we absorbed this idea that if you're serious about changing something, you go all in. You overhaul the whole thing. You burn it down and you start fresh. On Monday or January 1st, like the whole New Year's resolution thing. Or after summer, you do it right or you don't do it at all. Like that all or nothing mindset. And it's so baked into how we talk about this stuff that it doesn't even feel like a belief anymore. It just feels like the truth. Like, of course, serious people make serious changes. Half measures are for people who aren't really committed. That's just how it works, right? I don't know. I've been thinking about it, and I'm not sure it's true. It might be the opposite for a lot of people. What if the overhaul thing isn't actually a test of how serious you are? What if the overhaul's just a bad design? Because the more I think about it, the more I wonder if the whole change everything at once model was never really a strategy. What if it was just marketing dressed up as wisdom? The full reset, the complete overhaul, the lifestyle transformation. I started noticing how much of that is a really big transaction, a much bigger ticket than just shifting one small thing quietly in your own life without telling anyone. The whole burn it down and start fresh model, for most of us, it just wasn't built for real life. And think about the meditation thing. The reason you ended up with the cushion and the candle and the 20-minute morning commitment before you'd ever just sat quietly for 2 minutes, that's not you being overly ambitious. That's just kind of what the whole meditation world looks like. The apps, the morning routine content, all of it pointed towards this fully formed practice that needs the right conditions, the right posture, the right chunk of time. And when your actual morning, which is a real morning in a real life that almost never goes according to plan, couldn't hold all of that, you stopped. And then you wondered what was wrong with you. Nothing was wrong with you. I have a good one for this, actually. And honestly, it's a little embarrassing. And also, spoiler, not something I'd recommend. But it's a perfect example, so I'm going to go with it. So this was probably 10 or 15 years ago. A coworker of mine started telling us about this soup diet. Apparently, it's something they put people on before surgery, if they need to lose weight before they go under. So the idea is you make a big pot of vegetable soup and you basically just eat that for several days in a row. And then on day 3 or so, you get a potato with butter on it. And apparently it tastes like the most incredible thing you've ever eaten in your life because you've been eating soup for 3 days. And I remember sitting there listening to this and thinking, I am doing that. That's it. I'm doing the soup diet. So I went to Sam's Club. I bought everything in bulk, chicken broth, green beans, carrots, all of it. Way more than I needed, but I was committed. So I made the soup in a crock pot, and day 1, I had it for breakfast. I had it for lunch. And somewhere in the middle of the afternoon, sitting there, with my soup, all I could think was, I really want something crunchy. I have to have something crunchy right now. I gave up at 4 o'clock on day 1. I didn't even make it a full day. I grabbed those pretzels and I didn't look back. My husband still jokingly teases me about the soup diet, and we just start laughing. So that's just a small example, but I don't think a complete overhaul usually just fails because it's a bad design. I think it also fails because it was built for someone who has way more capacity than you probably have right now. Think about what a complete overhaul actually needs from you. It needs time you haven't carved out yet. It needs energy that isn't just sitting around waiting to be used. Do you have any extra energy just laying around? It needs mental space that, if your life looks anything like mine on most days, is already completely used up before you even get to the thing you want to change. So go back to the food thing for a second. When you decided to overhaul the way you eat, you probably made that decision at a moment when you were already really tired. Maybe you'd been running hard for months. Maybe you'd been in one of those seasons where you're giving a lot to work, to your family, to everyone who needs something from you. And you looked up one day and you realized the way you were eating wasn't making you feel good. And you wanted to fix it. That feeling was real. That impulse was good and was worth something. But the plan you made, the meal prep, the tracking app, the new rules, the cleaned out pantry, the plan was built for a different version of you. The rested version. The one with a free Sunday afternoon and a brain that wasn't already carrying 40 other things, and a body that was actually getting enough sleep. The overhaul assumed you had something extra to spend. And you didn't. You had almost nothing left. And you tried to build something enormous on that, and it didn't hold. Of course it didn't hold. The math was just wrong. That's not a character flaw. It's just math. So, in contrast to that is the small step. It doesn't need any of that surplus. It fits inside the life you actually have. That's what makes it sustainable. Like, not in some imaginary version of life where you finally have time and energy and a cleared out Sunday. This life, right now. You don't have to become a different person before you can start. You just have to find the one thing that costs the least and does the most. Or you don't even have to put that pressure on it. Like just something that's a little improvement over what you've been doing. So for the food thing, maybe it's not a whole new meal plan. Maybe it's just deciding that lunch is going to be something that took less than 10 minutes and has a vegetable in it. That's it. That's the whole thing. Not a transformation, not a reset, just lunch a little differently for a few weeks until that's just how you eat lunch now. And for meditation, like what's that version that doesn't need like perfect conditions? 2 minutes, not 20, not 10, 2. No cushion, no candle, no app, no specific way you're supposed to sit. Just 2 minutes at your desk before you open your email. Or while your coffee or your tea's brewing. Or sitting in your car at the school waiting for your kids. Anywhere, anytime. That's the whole commitment. It's not like a practice yet. It's just 2 minutes, wherever you happen to be, until it's just something you do. And going back to the story, the parable about the staircase, the second apprentice didn't try to reach the top on the first day. She cleared the weeds from one square of earth and went home. That was it. That was enough. And then, season after season, the stones just accumulated. But there's something I really don't want to skip over. So the reason the small step feels like it's not enough, even when you know logically that it's the right move, is that somewhere along the way, you picked up this idea that the size of your effort proves how much you want it. That doing a small step means you don't really care. That if you truly wanted it, you'd go all the way. But here's what I think happens when you go all the way, all at once, and then it falls apart. Which, honestly, it usually does. You don't just lose the habit. You lose something bigger. You add one more data point to the story you've been telling yourself about whether you're actually someone who can do this. Every time you overhaul and stop, you don't just fail to change how you eat or get your meditation practice going. You reinforce this story you're telling yourself, that you're someone who starts things and doesn't finish them, that you can't be trusted to follow through, that the gap between who you want to be and who you are is just like it's permanent. And that's not nothing. That's a real loss every single time. And if you have that story going on, it's honestly probably the most costly thing you're carrying, because it's already shaping the next attempt before you've even started. So here's what happens instead when you make one small change and actually keep it. You don't just get the benefit of the change. You get something way more valuable than that. You start to build actual evidence, real evidence, that you're someone who does what she says she's going to do. That you can trust yourself. That gap isn't fixed. It's closable. That's not a small thing. Go back to the food example. What changes when you eat a vegetable with your lunch 30 days in a row isn't just your nutrition. It's your relationship with yourself around food. You stop being someone who's always starting over. You start being someone who eats in a way that's slowly more like the person you want to be. I don't think the identity comes from the overhaul. I think it comes from the small, kept promises stacking up over time. And if you sit quietly for 2 minutes in your car, and then you do it again the next day, and the day after that, you're becoming something even before you have the cushion, even before you have the morning routine. You're becoming someone who pauses, who gives herself 2 minutes of stillness in a life that asks for everything. 2 minutes at a time, that's all. I'm not sure you can overhaul your way to becoming someone different. You just act your way there, slowly and imperfectly. Like one small thing you actually kept. Okay, so inner dialogue. This part is harder than it sounds, honestly. Choosing the small step isn't difficult because the step itself is hard. It's not, that's the whole point. But it's hard because you have to do it while this voice in your head is telling you it's not enough. In the story about the two apprentices and the staircase, that voice was coming from the village. And in real life, it comes from both directions. From the hustle culture stuff you've absorbed over years, and from yourself. The voice in your own head. And it's loud, and it's been there a long time. It sounds like the responsible part of you. That part that just wants you to finally get it done for real this time. Like, this is too small. You're not trying hard enough. If you really meant it, you'd do more. The small step is, it's like the quiet, rebellious choice. It's the one that says, I'm not going to wait until I can do this perfectly. I'm not going to wait until I have a big plan. I'm not going to wait until I have more time or more energy or more of myself available. I'm going to do this one small thing today in the life I actually have. And then I'm going to do it again tomorrow. Okay, I can hear what might be sitting in the back of your head right now. Everything I just said, the small step, the 2 minutes, the one vegetable at lunch, I can hear how that might sound like give up on the big thing, lower your expectations, stop dreaming so large, be realistic. And that is not what I'm saying. That is never what I'm saying. I want you to go after everything you want. The small step is not the final destination. It's just the first step. That meditation practice you actually want. The one where you sit quietly for 20 minutes in the morning and you actually feel it in your day. That vision isn't too big. That vision is worth keeping. The 2 minutes isn't a replacement for it. It's just one step toward it. The small step doesn't mean the small life. I think it might honestly be the best way to get to the larger thing you actually want. So the natural question at this point is, okay, but when do I get to go bigger? If I start with 2 minutes or one vegetable at lunch, how does this actually build into something real? And here's how I think of it. The step earns the right to grow by being kept. The small step isn't a ceiling. It's a starting point. And it's like a proof of concept. You're not just building the habit. You're building evidence that you're someone who does what she says she was going to do. And that compounds. It really does. That's where consistency comes from. Not from willpower, just from the small thing that stuck. And actually, this makes me think of The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. I think about the example stories in that book a lot. Okay, so I think the signal that you're ready to add more, that you're ready for the next step, it isn't like a date on the calendar. It's not when you feel like you should be further along or when you see someone else doing more and feeling behind. It's when the small step you're doing stops requiring a decision. When it's just moved from something you're doing to just how you do things. When it's settled. For the food thing, that might feel like lunch is just handled. You don't think about it. You don't negotiate with yourself. You don't feel virtuous for doing it. It just happens at midday. And when you're there, you'll know. And from there, maybe dinner starts to shift a little, or maybe you add more protein to breakfast. Not because you planned a new overhaul, just because you're ready for the next small step and you can feel it. For the meditation, it might be that 2 minutes has gotten so quiet and settled that you barely noticed you're doing it anymore. And from there, maybe it becomes 5 minutes. Maybe it finds a more consistent time. Not because you decided to finally build a real practice, just because there's space now, and the next step is just the one that fits. I won't pretend that this is as fast as the overhaul promised. It's not. But the overhaul's timeline was mostly fiction anyway. Like a really good fantasy novel. Which, by the way, I'm actually in the middle of the Caraval series right now, after reading the offshoot Once Upon a Broken Heart, and I'm obsessed with that book. So this is very top of mind, and it distracted me a little. Anyway, back to the point. The slow build is the one that actually sticks. You're not behind. You're not too late. So I want to leave you with just one question. Not a homework assignment, not a challenge, just something to turn over on a walk or while driving or in a quiet moment. Think about the thing you keep trying to change. The one with the most false starts. The one where you already know the overhaul version by heart. The question is just this. What's the version of that change that is so small it almost feels like it doesn't count? Not the change that would impress anyone, The one that fits inside a day when everything has already gone sideways. The one that needs nothing from you except just deciding to do it. That version. That's the one. Okay, a couple of things before I let you go. If this episode resonated, if you know someone who's been trying to change something and keeps starting over, send this to them. That's genuinely how a show like this finds the right people. And it takes about 10 seconds. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and do that wherever you're listening. It's free, and it just means you won't miss the next one. Links to everything I mentioned today are in the show notes and description. I'll make them easy to find. Before I go, I just want to say, you're not someone who can't follow through. You're someone who was handed a model that was never built to last, in a season when you had nothing left to spare. You tried to use it, and it didn't work, and you blamed yourself. You weren't failing. You were just trying to go from 0 to 100. But the step was too big. That's all it was. So make it smaller. Oh, and one more thing. After I planned out this whole episode, I got curious and I looked up that soup diet that I did 10 or 15 years ago. I'm pretty sure it's called the Sacred Heart Diet. And the article I found basically said it was made up. Like, completely made up. A fad diet thing designed to sell you something. Not based on anything real. Not recommended at all. So yeah, I thought that was funny and also reiterates my point. This is the steady becoming. Around here, we don't burn it down. We adjust and we keep going. And when you do, there's no telling the ripple effect on you and quietly on everyone around you. You got this.